Hello and welcome to the comment roundup video for August. In this video, I'm taking some of the comments left in our tutorial videos and doing my best to give some guidance or help answer them. Input system tutorial, please? Yeah, sure. There is a whole video dedicated to the new Unity input system. There's a link to that in the description. I love this guy and other such praise. Yeah, he's all right. This is his personal YouTube channel if you want to check that out. There's some cool devlog stuff on there, some streaming, some good stuff. Check it out. How to play animations. Okay, so if you wanted to make an animation, something you could do would be like, let's just go ahead and throw in a cube. Okay, and we'll zero this guy out. And he's like right here. Okay. And what we could do is hit Control 6. That opens up our animation tab. You can also access it from the windows over here. Window, animation, and then animation. You'll see that this changes depending on what we have selected. So if I click on the camera, it says to begin animating camera, or if I selected our directional light, to begin animating directional light. But we want to animate our cube. So begin animating cube, create an animator, and an animation clip. So I'm gonna hit create. And now here's where we would select a folder to put our animations in. So for this, I'm gonna go ahead and store it in a new folder, call it animations. Okay, and we'll call this cube animation. Okay, so because we clicked that button on here, it kind of did some stuff automatically for us. It automatically took us to a window where we can create a new animation, and it also automatically added in an animator component to the cube. You can also come over here to add component, and then just type in animator, and add in that component yourself as well. So let's animate our cube. I'm just gonna go ahead and select this, and we'll hit add property, and then it gives you all the properties of your cube, and we're just gonna wanna animate its transform. We'll transform its position, add another property, and its rotation, add another property, its scale. Okay, and let's say this gets animated. I'm just scrolling up and down to see this timeline on a longer scale. Let's drag these frames out to, let's call it 5 seconds. Okay, so for its position, you have these keyframes, and keyframes are sort of the checkpoints of values of whichever value you have. So over here, if I select this keyframe, this position, it tells you the position information right here. If I come over to this next one, you can also use this button that says go to next keyframe. It'll take you right to it, and it has this position information right here. So if I move this now, you'll see this update. Right? See these position coordinates? They get changed. Right? So it's changing the value that's being stored in these right here. But if I scrub through the timeline, it gets reset. So what I'm going to want to do is move this to wherever I want it to be animated to, and then hit this keyframe button. It says add a keyframe. Okay, so now if I scrub through this, you'll see that it retains that information. All right, let's try that with the rotation. We can go to this. Let's try just changing this first keyframe. So I'm going to rotate this like that, and then add keyframe. If I scrub through it, now it spins and moves. And then same thing with the scale. We can, oops. And now you'll see that we scrub through. It gets bigger, it spins, and it moves. Okay, so that's the animation created, but how do we get it to play when something happens? Well, what I could do is, for example, add in an FSM. And in our FSM, I'll put a animator play. Now what this animator play action does is it references the animator component on the game object, the same game object that the FSM is on. So They're together here, our animator component and our FSM. And if we go to our animator component, you'll see that the controller it's using is this cube controller. So that's another thing that that button did for us automatically. If I click on this cube, it takes us over here to our animations folder where there is this file that just says cube. What this is an animator controller. You can create animator controllers by right-clicking, create animator controller. The way you could look at these is they're kind of like folders full of different animation sets. So if I double-click on this and I open it up, this is what it looks like by default. And it automatically already has our cube animation in here. So this cube animation, it's called cube animation, that's the clip, right? I'm gonna select all that text, I'm gonna hit Control-C or Command-C to copy it, because it has to be spelled exactly the same way with capitalization and spacing and all. And if I come back over to our cube in this animator play, I'll paste in that cube animation text. So this animator play now, when it runs, it'll play that cube animation. But let's set it up so that only happens when we press a button. So I'm gonna create a new state and I'll do get key down. And we'll have an event next and it'll send off here. And the key we want will be P for play. Okay, and we'll right click and set a start state. So it starts here. Let's call this stopped. And then this one is play. So if we come back out to our scene, take a look at this here, play the scene. Okay, so this is playing and looping automatically. And that's because our cube animation right here says loop time. Okay, so that's looping, so that stops it from looping. But also in our cube animator, you'll see that this entry point, this is where the animator starts, and it has this little arrow pointing directly to cube animation. And basically what this is saying is that right when it starts, it goes straight to playing this cube animation. So we don't really want it to go there. What we want it to do instead is maybe go to a empty state, and we'll set this one as our default state. Okay, so now it just comes here and does nothing. And our cube animation is just kind of sitting there. Now let's hit play. Okay, nothing happening, and then I'll hit the P key, and now it plays. And you'll see it only plays the once. That's an overview of one of the ways to get animations set up. This is one of the more common and simple ways to get animations going. There's a lot more to dive into with the animator components and animations. All right, and somebody asked about a crate that takes damage. Well, I did show you how to do that in the breakable crates tutorial, and now in the simple weapons pickup tutorial, I show you how you can not only make it take collision damage, but also damage from raycasts when you're shooting guns and stuff like that. Someone asked, is PlayMaker convenient for 2D pixel art games? Yeah, totally. So I'm not going to jump into too much detail here because that is a whole thing to get into, but what we could go over, just to show you an idea of what can be done, is I'm just going to create an empty here, okay, this game object, and we'll add an FSM to it, just so we can look at some actions here. Now, a fun way to poke around in PlayMaker to really find out its capabilities is just by using your actions search tab. So if you just type in 2D, you can see all these actions here that have to do with making 2D games. So for example, this mouse pick 2D, screen pick 2D, translate position 2D. So these are like physics 2D actions. There's a whole category for this. So all of your physics actions that you're used to for 3D stuff, they're also here and specified for 2D stuff. Same thing with transform, got look at 2D game object, get position 2D, set position 2D, line cast 2D. And then if you're making 2D games, you're using sprites. So if you come up here and type in sprite, you'll see you also have all of these sprite actions as well. You have a set sprite flip. This is to flip sprites, so you can make your character run left or right, but still using the same sprite image. And then a lot of 2D game development with PlayMaker, you're gonna be using actions that you also use for 3D games. A lot of stuff with the math actions, camera actions, audio actions, array, because you figure out game logic in the same way. There's not too much that changes when designing 2D and 3D games. All these state machine actions that you use, tweens, you're probably going to use more vector 2 actions instead of vector 3, but even then, you might be making a 2D game that uses a 3D space, sort of a 2.5D game, in which case you might actually end up using lots of Vector 3 actions.
Be sure to check out our other videos to learn all the various features of PlayMaker. Links to more learning resources are in the description.